Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Perashat is Perashat Messora, and it's a continuation of the previous Perashat's theme, where we learn about these laws about the slanderer and what's the response to slandering. Now, I have a very different take on this, so I need you to give me your attention for a brief moment, and I'm going to share something with you that I think will help deepen your Passover and hopefully a deeper appreciation for the Torah reading itself. So we know that the Parsha begins with the laws that surround the Messora, the laws that surround a slanderer. And it's not an accident that we read these Parshiot at a time of the year where it's right around Passover time. And I don't believe this is accidental. I think this is very much purposeful. I think there's a very deep relationship between the reading and the time of the year that we're actually reading these readings. So now like this, if I was to ask you, okay, come up with a word that would describe the month of Nisan. There are two words that would come up, I think, most profoundly. Number one is the idea that the month of Nisan is a month of freedom, right, tied into Pesach. And also, it is the month of miracles. The word Nisim itself means miracle. So you have these two ideas, and I don't think they're accidental. I think that they're purposeful. What is the relationship between the miraculous and freedom? So let's first define what each of these things are. Okay, let's start with miracle. What makes a miracle a miracle? It's a good question. Yeah. We talk about it, we speak about it. How do we understand it today? So this is my oversimplistic way of understanding what is miraculous. A miraculous something, event, is something that occurs once. It's something that breaks out of the nature of nature, period. So for example, let's say you have a flower. A flower blooms, right? It begins to emerge. It's super clear about its purpose. It lives for a short period of time, and then it eventually dies. Okay, and when we see the blooming of a flower, no one suspects anything miraculous about it. It's part of nature. When you see the sunrise and it's beautiful and it's awe-inspiring and it's so stunning, are you blown away by the miracle of the sun rising? And the answer is no, because you've seen it 100 times. And therefore, on some level, when we see something being repeated over and over again, we see it as part of nature. And therefore, for me, a miracle is something, an event that happens that is not frequent. Something that we see that breaks out of the natural pattern of things. Something that happens over and over again, that's not miraculous. Something that is expressed itself, that breaks out of the natural order of things, that is a miracle. Okay, great. So I think we understand what a miracle is. A miracle is something that breaks out of a natural pattern. Okay, a flower that should be dead in the winter, you see it growing and blooming, that, my friends, is a miracle. You see the sun, it's supposed to set, and it's not setting, it goes backwards, it's reversing, it's rising, miracle. That's not the order of things. The more frequent an event happens, the more part of nature it is. The less miraculous it is. Now, I would still argue on some level that even those reoccurring things are still part of the miraculous. They're still profound. They're still beautiful. But we become desensitized because they happen over and over again. Miracles are miracles. A break from within nature. When Jews talk about freedom, what are we talking about? When we say that Vadim Hayinu L'Paro B'Mitzrayim, that we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and then we finally broke free and we had our freedom. Were we free to do whatever we wanted? Were we free to go wherever we want to go? And the answer is, like Marie says, no. Right? We were not free to go wherever we wanted to. We were going to a very specific location. Could we eat whatever we wanted? No. Could we dress whatever we wanted to? No. Could we say whatever we wanted to? And the answer is no. You can't. You can't even. There was a boundary on your speech. There's limitations set up everywhere. So we on Pesach talk about the fact that we were free, but free to do what? Wouldn't you agree that so much of the slavery that we had in Egypt we just transferred from one sort of servitude into another? Where is the freedom? Where is the freedom? And I think that we need to kind of like redefine what freedom means in Judaism. In Judaism, freedom isn't the freedom to do whatever it is that I want. Freedom in Judaism is something much more profound. It's about the freedom of choice. There was a famous book written by a man named Nathan Sharansky, who was a political prisoner in the former Soviet Union. He was incarcerated for about 9 years in jail. He was arrested a few days after his wedding. And he was put into solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is the greatest punishment, something that the Messora has to go through. Someone who speaks Lashon Hara, someone who actually has tzarat on them. Remember, tzarat is not leprosy. A leper, when he's in a leper camp, he can be with other lepers. That's not a problem. But someone who has tzarat, someone who has this spiritual malady called tzarat, he can't be around other people with tzarat. He has to be alone. He has to be secluded. He has to be in a camp where he is away from everybody else. So seclusion is a very, very powerful tool of punishing someone. It's psychologically debilitating. But there's one thing that's important. Nathan Sharansky is in prison, okay, for 9 years. He's, I think, legally in Russia at the time, you weren't allowed to give a prisoner more than 15 days out of the year in solitary confinement. Okay? He was there for 9 years. He had a total of 420-something days of solitary confinement. That's a lot of solitary confinement. Now, he'll tell you that it's true that he was imprisoned and behind bars, but there was something much more profound that he experienced. That real freedom had nothing to do with the location that he was in, but real freedom was tethered to his ability to use his mind, his ability to make free will choices. That is real freedom, not the freedom to go wherever you want. He told the guards that were there, he's like, I'm more free than you are. They're laughing, but you're more free. You're behind bars. We can leave. He says, yeah, it's true. I might be behind bars, but I could say whatever I want. Your country is a joke. Your president is a joke. You can't say that, because if you say that, what's going to happen? You're going to go to jail. So who's more free? The person behind bars, or the person who's free to express his will, his mind? He's like, my mind and he's like, my body might be behind these bars, but my mind right now, I'm sitting in Puerto Rico on the beach with an umbrella drinking a martini. I could be anywhere. You can't take that away from me. So what was the slavery of Egypt? What was the servitude? It wasn't one of incarceration. The Jews had homes. They had families. They had marriages. They had children. They raised their own families. Was that slavery? When we read on Pesach, it's true we were slaves to Pharaoh, but what does that really mean? What kind of servitude were we talking about?
We had to build the pyramids.
It's true, we did build the pyramids, but we still went home. We went shopping. We brought food home. We had our own meals. It's not like, I want to change the vision. It's true there was some sort of servitude. The servitude wasn't the work. It was true. It was painful, breaking work. You're right. But that's not what the slavery was. The slavery was a worse kind of slavery. And it's tied into this week's Perashat. Why is it that the Torah, over 39 times, tells us about how evil it is to use negative speech? Over and over again. There's so many instances throughout the whole entire Torah. Don't say Lashon Hara. We hear it over and over again. Oh, Lashon Hara, Lashon Hara. Don't say it. Don't speak it. And think about it like this. Lashon Hara are things that come out of our mouth. Right? There's more restrictions about what comes out of our mouth in the Torah than things that go into our mouth. There are more laws of Lashon Hara, negative speech, than kashrut. Think about that for a minute. The question is, why is it? Why is it so important to be an individual who uses positive speech? Why is it so horrible to say something bad? I had a friend who said to me, I don't speak slander. I don't speak Lashon Hara. I don't repeat it. I never repeat Lashon Hara. So listen carefully, because I'm only going to say it once. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to say it once. Right? So I'm not going to say it. I have nothing negative to share. But The idea is like this. This is my interpretation of these matters. The month of Nisan is the month of miracles, because the miracles we're actually celebrating is the power of choice, the power of thought. The Jewish people were enslaved to whom? What was the king's name in Egypt? Very good, Paro. Maral says that Paro's name is a conjugation of two words, Peh and Ra, evil speech. Paro, evil speech, right? What was the evil speech of Paro? It wasn't the name of the country they lived in. Mitzrayim. What does Mitzrayim mean? The word Mitzrayim comes from the Shoresh Metzer, which means to constrict, to make narrow, to be myopic, to be small-minded. The real slavery of Egypt, my friends, was not a slavery of the body, it was a slavery of the mind, and I'll prove it to you, right? What was the name of the leader of the Jewish people in the story? When Paro made those decrees about throwing the boys into the river, what was his name?
Moses.
Nope.
No.
Nice try. Moses wasn't born yet, right? Moses came afterwards. What was Moses' father's name? Very good. Amram. Amram ends up divorcing his wife Yocheved, right? Why? Why does he divorce her? He says like this, Midrash tells us he divorced her because he says, why should I be married? My children are all going to be destroyed. The boys are being thrown into the river. Why am I raising a family? It's over. Judaism, take the kippah off, throw it away. We don't need it anymore, my friends. It's over. We lose. Just assimilate, convert, forget about it. Don't bother. There's no point in fighting. This is the leader of the Jewish people. The rabbi, the nasi, the president, the commander-in-chief is telling people divorce. What does Midrash say? Every male divorces their wife. It's over. They gave up. Mass divorce happens. Who comes along? A brilliant young woman by the name of Miriam, right? Amram's daughter. And he says to him, Dad, your decree, you're worse than Paro. You're much worse. Because Paro's decree just kills the boys. But it's like your decree kills the boys and the girls. So what was Miriam's message? Abba, the way you're seeing the world is so narrow. It's so myopic. Think bigger. Where's hope? Why are you abandoning hope? Why are you giving up? Where did that come from? Which means that even Amram, Moshe's father, had a slavery of the mind. Remember, Egypt was the first caste system. You were born a slave, you're going to die a slave. You were born into royalty, you will remain into royalty. Now let me ask you, when you take a job knowing that you'll be in the same position for the rest of your life? And the answer is, no way, Jose, not me. I don't know about you, I wouldn't want that kind of a job. I want a job with upward mobility. I want to climb the ranks. I want to know that I'm working towards building something bigger and better and greater. In Mitzrayim, there was no growth. Stuck. You were standing still. Okay? Nothing was moving. Amram buys into the philosophy, divorces his wife, his daughter comes along and saves the day. When we talk about the freedom of Mitzrayim, we're talking about the freedom of the mind, the freedom to choose. But Marie's going to ask, Rabbi, but you didn't answer your first question. I believe you that when you said that we're transferring one form of servitude for another. And Marie, the answer is it's true. Now this is the hardest thing I'm going to say. For me, I have a hard time saying it. I have a hard time saying it because I understand the implications of it, but I know it's true. And that is, no one is truly ever free. Every one of us is going to be a slave to something. There is no freedom. You're going to be a slave to your job. You're going to be a slave to your career. You're going to be a slave to your society. You're going to be a slave to music, fashion, food, whatever the vice is. You can become a slave to it. What's that?
Religion.
You can be a slave to that also, which is why the Torah is interested in one thing: balance. It's interested in, and the way in which we achieve balance is through what? Bechira, my free will to choose. So now, the reason why you're saying, well, it's too much, it's overwhelming, is because you think that boundaries are bad, that restrictions are bad. So for example, at Shabbat, I have 25, I can't go out. I can't go to a restaurant. I can't go to a club. I can't do business. Rabbi, you're taking away my potential. And this is a mistake. Listen very carefully. It's a mistake because the opposite is true. People who have boundaries have more success. Ready? Someone who's really good at time management, does he have more time or less time? More time. Right? Oh, but he's restricting himself. He's managing his time. He should have less, but he has more. Someone who's worried about their food, okay? He has a diet. He wants to live healthy. Is he going to live longer or less? Longer, right? You see, the restrictions are not a bad thing. The restrictions, the boundaries create a vehicle, a process for you to grow into something more. Pesach is all about those details. But there's one area in our lives where we have the hardest time restricting. You know what it's called? The peh, the mouth. We have the hardest time restricting what comes out. It's so hard. The Torah goes out, no, my friend, stop. Be careful what comes out of your mouth. It impacts reality in more than ways you could possibly imagine. So listen to this pasuk, by the way. This is brilliant, okay? This is a brilliant pasuk. Torah says as follows. I'm reading from Vayikra Perek Yud Daled, okay? Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, el Moshe ve'al Aharon lemor. God speaks to Moses and Aaron saying, Ki tavo el eretz Canaan, when you come into the land of Canaan, asher ani noten lachem, when I am giving to you la'achuzah for a possession, v'natati nega tzara bebeit eretz achuzotechem. When I place a nega, a lesion, a pagam on the house, okay, that you're going to inherit, when you see that, uba asher lo habayit, the one whose house belongs to comes. Uba asher lo habayit, the one who owns the house will come. Vehigid lekohen lemor. He's going to come and tell the kohen the following: Kinega nira li babayit. There's something like a nega, something like a lesion that has come to my house. Now, what do you mean kinega, like a nega? The Torah is telling us like this: when we speak negatively and we move into the land of Israel, this did not happen to the Jews until they moved into the land of Israel. When they moved to the land of Israel, there was a new spiritual reality that if they spoke lashon hara, they could get this tzarat stuff on their house. And when it happens, the verse says, you got to come to the kohen and tell him the following: It nira li, it seems to me, kinega, it's like a nega on my house. Why are you saying it like that? Just tell me if it's a nega or not. Just say it's a nega. I got a nega. Why do you got to say kinega? It's like a nega. So let's pause for a minute. Do you know that when you walk into a room, any room, the walls around you bend towards you ever so slightly? Because you're changing. Yes, it's measurable. Google it after my class. You can't see it with your eyes, but you can measure it. When you walk into a room, everything around you contracts towards you a little bit. It's measurable. It's measurable. I've actually spoken to architects about it. They all say it's true. You always build a house with a little bit of wiggle because things inside the house change the structure of the house. Okay, that's just physically. Torah is saying something different. The Torah is saying that when you use words, your words, my friends, can impact the bite, the house. When you speak negatively, you can break the walls around you. It's not an accident that God uses speech to create the world. Bereshit bara olam, God created the world with words. When we say abracadabra, those words come from Aramaic, right? Avareka adaber, I will create as I speak. Speech creates reality. If you live in a world where everything that comes out of your mouth is negative, the world around you will become negative, I promise you. If you see things and you can't speak in a positive kind of way, everything around you will be tainted in that kind of negative glass. The Torah is telling you like this: you're going to take a man who finds tzarat in his house. You know what he's got to do? The first lesson is to teach him it's kinega. Slow down, Sparky. You don't got to go ahead and assume it's the worst. Teach the guy to say it slowly. No, I'm not sure, Rabbi. It's kinega. It's like a nega. Don't assume the worst right away. Take a step back. Kinega, my friends. It's there to teach him that your words matter. Why does it matter? What happens if the Kohen comes and says, oh, you got a massive problem here. We got to get tzarat busters into your house and scrape off all the tzarat because you got it. It's horrible here. It's so bad we got to knock the walls down, which was what happened. If the Kohen came and he deemed that the house was in fact filled with tzarat, we're not talking about mold. These aren't mold removal specialists. We're talking about a spiritual ailment. You know what the Gemara says? When someone got tzarat on their hand, they could scratch it away. It's gone. We're not talking about that. Tzarat isn't the illness, right? The tzarat is the symptom. It's an expression of the illness. What is the illness? My friends, it's your mindset. Lashon ra comes from dibur ra. It comes from having a bad mouth. It comes from not being able to see that we live in a world that is a constant miracle. That everything that we are so blessed. Listen to this. Let's say the guy finds out that he actually has tzarat in his house, and we gotta knock the walls down. What does the pasuk say? Listen to this. It keeps going. It's better and better. I'm not making this stuff up. This stuff was written, my friends, 3,300 years ago. Okay, the tziva HaKohen, right? The Kohen's going to order to clean out the house. Pinu et habayit. He's got to clear out the house. Yavo HaKohen lirot et nega. He's going to come and see the nega, the lesion. V'lo yitameh kol asher b'bayit. So that not everything in the house won't become unclean. After this, Yavo HaKohen lirot et habayit. So before the Kohen comes in, the guy who suspects his house of having tzarat has got to remove everything from his house. Sound familiar? Some of you right now might be going through this process, not because, God forbid, you have tzarat in your home, but because Passover cleaning is happening, and you are removing things from your house, and it's overwhelming. So there's two things that are happening here. One is the reason why he's pulling out all these items from his home is so that if, in fact, his house is a house of tzarat, we don't make the klis, the kelim, the vessels, impure. Because if the house is designated as impure, everything in the house becomes impure. He takes it out to save those items. We want to save those items. We don't want him to go through more hardship. But if in fact the house is destroyed as a result of tzarat, right? This guy's, at least he has his possessions. But let's say it's not so bad. The Kohen comes and says, don't worry about it. It's not so bad. I could clean this with you, no problem. So now, why is the tikkun? Why is the process to remove the stuff from the house? Several reasons. One is that tzarat comes from someone who has negative speech. Negative speech comes from someone who is haughty, someone who is arrogant, someone who is pompous, someone who believes that they're entitled to everything. Someone who is miserly, someone who is not willing to give tzedakah, someone who can help but doesn't help, comes from a place of arrogance. So what does he do? Everyone gets to see everything in his house. Whoa, this guy is not only a miser, he's super miser. Look at all the things he has in his house. Right? So the people see it as, wow, this guy, it's even worse. It's worse than we thought. It's supposed to jolt him, wake him up, my friend. But more than that, it's for the guy who's clearing out his house to recognize, wow, I can't believe how much I have. I'm going through all my stuff. I have so much. Maybe I should be a bit more aware of how much I am giving. Maybe I should spend more time thinking about being someone who gives back. I'm so blessed. I have so much. And Leah points out more than that. If in fact he breaks the walls in the house, this is in Israel, in the land of Canaan, Chachamim tell us that he'll find treasures. The Canaanim, when they left the land of Israel, they hid their gold. They didn't want to take it with them. They thought they were going to come back. So what happens is the guy who would break the wall, and he's seeing his house being demolished, and all of a sudden he's got a treasure chest. Why is that the reward? Why are we rewarding this guy? Because we want to show him that everything in the world around us that happens is tov, is good. Stop seeing things in our lives as being negative. Stop interpreting things negatively. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Be positive. Stop using bad language. My friends, the reason why the world is the way it is because we don't know how to speak properly to each other anymore. We don't know how to give people the space to make mistakes, the space to do teshuvah. We don't give ourselves the opportunity of allowing ourselves to have a positive mindset. Don't abandon hope. What do we do on the Pesach? What's the tikkun of living in a month of miracles, living at a time of nisim? living at a time where we're about to embrace freedom, what do? We do order, seder. I have a seder to remind me that in order for me to achieve true freedom, I have to get myself organized. Then what I gotta do? I gotta get a Haggadah. What is the Haggadah's function? Right? His function is lahagid, to tell the story. Where did I come from? But more importantly, my friends, where are we going? What are we doing? Where are we going with all this freedom? What are we doing now? So as Jews, we say it's very simple. We're taking micro steps towards God. I recognize that I'm a human and I'm fallible. I recognize that I'm stuck. But my friends, the celebration of Pesach is that I want to choose to be more. That I'm not stuck. That my myopic view of the world can be changed by how I change my words. It's correlated. Moshe, by the way, he is the lawgiver. He's the guy that comes down and gives us what? The Torah Shaba'al Peh, right? But he stammers. The guy's stuttering all over the place. Why would God choose a stammerer to give over the Torah? Would you hire a guy to be your orator, to be your mouthpiece, if the guy can't get a word out properly? Why would you choose him? Listen to this very carefully. This is such a cool idea. I love this idea. This is the Maharal also. He says like this. He says that every single time Moses spoke, and he was teaching Torah, there was no stutter. It was clear. And when people heard him speak, you know what they knew? It wasn't coming from him. It was coming from beyond him. God uses a person who cannot speak. There was no way for him to speak negatively. He never used his speech in a negative way. His mouth was clean. He was a perfect vessel. Do we create a space within ourselves to believe that we can become more? Or are we stuck in the pattern of nature? No, this is who I am. Things are always going to be the same. Nothing's ever changing. Shum chadash tachat hashemesh. Nothing is new underneath the sun. Nothing changes, my friends. That is a lie. It's a lie. And on Passover, we break free. You know what the mitzvah we got is on Passover? We do a chodesh hazel lachem. The first mitzvah the Jewish people got in the Rosh Chodesh Nisan was the idea of believing in a new moon. The sun is exactly the same thing. Oh, it never changes. I know exactly where it rises. I know where it sets. I know where it is midday. The moon, do you know where the moon is tonight? The answer is, I have no idea. I don't know if it's in the east, if it's in the west. I have no idea. Is it big? Is it small? It's always changing. That was the shift. Forget about the Ra, the sun god. God says, my friends, the story of being a Jew is recognizing that yes, you need seder, order, like the sun, but you also need hidchatshut, the chodesh. You need renewal. You need to renew yourself. How do we do that renewal? How do we make that change in a month of miracles? By recognizing that things can change. We can break out of nature. By recognizing that, my friends, that there's a story that needs to be told. That we need to express our truest power, which is free will, so we can elevate ourselves into something more. You want to be free this Pesach? You want to be free? The first step, my friends, of freedom is by taking in and taking responsibility for your words. You choose to live in a world of positivity or negativity. That's your choice. You choose to see a world of nature or miraculous. You choose to see a world of nega. Chachamim say the word nega, affliction. Nun gimel ayin, the same letters as oneg, ayin nun gimel, which means pleasure. You choose how you see the world. It could be an affliction, or it could be something profoundly pleasurable. That is your choice. That is the real freedom we have. The only freedom we have is the freedom to choose. What we do with it, that's up to you. You could choose to live a life where you're running after materialism. I don't believe you're going to find happiness. You could choose to live a life of only indulging in pleasure. You're not, my friends, you're not going to find happiness in that either. The people that are the happiest are the people that understand that there are boundaries that they set for themselves to elevate themselves into something more. My wish, my hope, my blessing to each of you is that you recognize that your superpower is the power of choice. That your perception determines reality, and that perception and reality is so tied into your speech. Use positive speech. Make a neder. Take on an oath some sort of a declaration that you, my friends, are not going to stop. You're never going to give up. You only want to see the best in the world. If you're able to do this, you will have a true Passover of freedom. But more importantly, in that process of you using positive, powerful speech, you end up changing the world. Let's change the world together, making it more positive, making it more brighter, making it more successful. Let's get rid of all the war. Let's get rid of all the insanity that we live in, people smacking each other, people being upset. Let's get ourselves into a healthy, positive space and see the best in the world. I believe that is the trick of bringing this Messianic age. You want to understand how we lost it? We lost the Beit HaMikdash because of negative speech. The way in which we're going to fix it, my friends. You want to solve all Palestinian issues in Israel, Jews and Palestinians? Let's create a campaign. We go back to the Palestinians and the Jews, say we're working on Shmirat HaLashon together. We're working on positive speech. We do that, solve the world problems, we bring Mashiach together. Thank you so much for listening. Looking forward to continuing the conversation next week. Shabbat Shalom. If we don't speak or see each other before Pesach, wishing you a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.